You can be successful in business, articulate in meetings, and be respected in your industry, but feel disconnected in your closest of relationships. Today, we are talking about relational health and why communication, boundaries, and conflict handling are not soft skills, but actually performance skills. I'm joined by Anne Skelton, relationship coach and creator of a practical framework that helps couples understand themselves and their triggers first so they can reconnect without blame or drama. I'm Ildiko Seely, your routine and performance strategist. And this is Routine is Revenue, where we connect your personal health routines directly to your business and career performance. So, Anne, high performers can negotiate contracts, they can lead teams, they can close important deals, yet they struggle to communicate at home. Why is it that intelligent, capable adults are often so emotionally clumsy in their closest of relationships?
I think you hit the nail on the head there that emotionally clumsy is the big issue, because relationships are emotionally connected beings. And if your relationship isn't right, then it can affect all areas of your life. So it is important that you find a way to communicate well at home. Why they're clumsy? Quite possibly just because it's easier to be yourself when you're not emotionally connected. When you're emotionally connected, it's really difficult to be yourself because you kind of have that feeling of I'm always getting things wrong.
Do you think that, or in your experience, that people don't get quite so emotionally connected to their work or their colleagues or their targets at work or within their business?
That's right. Yeah, there's no emotional connection, is there? And everybody feels more comfortable where they know they can't get things wrong. So if you're at home, especially for men, they tend to find that if they get a bit of criticism, which us women are really good at, by the way, if they get a bit of criticism, then they shut down. It's just a natural thing, right? So it's not intended to be sexist at all, but men do tend to like revert to their little cave when they feel like they can't get things right. So when they go to work, they know that they can do their job. They know that they can, execute everything exactly as they want to. But when it's about their emotional relationship, it's much more tricky.
Is it like society set rules though, like that, as you say, like men sort of retreat to their cave, but is it about that sort of macho that I have to be the provider, I have to be strong and show that strength? Or have you noticed any change in people's attitude as we are changing in society towards like equality and encouraging men to show emotions as well?
There's attraction in vulnerability, right? So the more vulnerable a man can be in a relationship, then the more attractive he'll become. Well, it's an innate thing in men anyway to provide and protect, right? But with this sort of new movement, so to speak, that men are getting very emasculated and really unsure of what is the right thing to say, the right thing to do, if they're overstepping a boundary and that it's going to be taken the wrong way. So it's really difficult, I think, for men in today's society because there are so many strong women out there. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, but we need to be able to be in touch with our feminine energy as well as them being in touch with their masculine energy.
I find it quite interesting that you said that people are not emotionally attached at work, but do you find that that's at work when people are in employment? But also, like, is it at different levels? So when you are in high level management or middle management or like a technician kind of like, like I don't know, I don't want to be sounding degrading to lower jobs in the hierarchy of a company, for example. But I would expect that people who run their own businesses, they are very, very emotionally connected to their business.
To their business, which is a completely different emotional connection. Emotional connection in a relationship is about vulnerability. Emotional connection to your business is all about making your business successful, giving it all the effort that you can to make it successful and to bring the money in. Whereas the emotional relationship tends to kind of almost fall by the wayside sometimes, especially if you are running your own business.
So if you go into relationships and the hidden cost of not maintaining good relationships, whether it's the personal, like your partner, your life partner, or whether it's in business or at work. But I know that you do couples counseling. So when couples come to you, what do you find? Do they fight about what they say, or do they fight about what's actually happening underneath the surface, underneath their conflict?
It's a bit of both, because communication is really important, right? But if you're not communicating in a way that works for both of you, then there's going to be a disconnect. So having relationships at work is a lot easier because there's no emotional connection. But the relationship at home, you need to have good communication skills. You need to be able to communicate in a way that each other can understand. But that comes from understanding yourself, followed by understanding the impact of you on your relationship. And then you can understand your partner better and how you can work through things in a better way and be more connected.
I was going to ask a fairly deep question, like how successful are people to find their honesty? Because I imagine that that's going to have to come down to honesty with themselves first in order to, first of all, acknowledge that they might not be communicating very well, and then to actually implement any techniques to communicate better.
Yeah, and that obviously is where I come in, and help them to find ways to communicate better. And we have everything on the spectrum of, not being able to talk very much at all, not really knowing what to say, to oversharing and talking too much. So you'll find an anxious attached person will talk way more than someone who's an avoidant, who will talk
Yeah.
less. And the anxious person will go towards the avoidant, and the avoidant will then pull away more. So it's about understanding how you can communicate better with each other so that you can have that, really intense communication that helps you to resolve things, but also to feel safe while you're doing it.
Do people relate to how these issues in their personal relationship then affect their work life and their business life?
Yeah, I mean, if your relationship isn't right, then it affects everything. It affects how you relate
Absolutely.
to other people. It affects how you are at work. And sometimes you'll find, I mean, people will do one of 5 things if their relationship, one or more of those 5 things, if their relationship isn't right. They'll launch more into their work or their business. They'll spend more time with their kids, their family or their friends, and hobbies. And then, ultimately, if things are really not right and there's no resolution, in the arms of someone else.
But of course, this is a business podcast, and we've got business people listening. So I would really like to drill a little bit more into how the negative issues that people carry in their personal relationships affect their business.
Well, it's about mental health, isn't it, really? If your mental health isn't good, then that's going to affect you at work as well. You're not going to be able to perform at your optimum levels, and that's going to obviously affect the business ultimately.
I mean, interesting. Managing relationships comes in the realm of emotional health, the emotional health pillar of how we manage that. But everything always kind of goes around and links into other things. Because I suppose if your relationships are not good at home or at work, then they will both affect each other one day.
Yeah, you'll bring your bad relationships at work home and expect support and hope for support, which usually happens. If you're in disconnect, it won't. But then equally, it's a little bit more difficult to take your relationship issues into work. So it just affects your mental health. So you're just not functioning at your best. You're not bringing the best, 100% best of you to your business.
Absolutely. So essentially, you help couples understand themselves first, as you mentioned earlier. That's even before they are trying to fix each other or their relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what shifts when someone takes responsibility for their own emotional patterns instead of waiting for the partner to change?
They become happier in themselves, because at the end of the day, we need to be functioning 100% the best of ourselves and take that into our relationship. If we're not, what we're doing is we're looking at them to provide what's missing for us. And we can't always provide that for other people. Our happiness is our own responsibility.
Yes.
So if we can't be happy, how can we show our partner how to make us happy?
In your experience, I don't know if you can put a number on it or some feel on it, like, is there a high percentage of people who, when they come to you, they are in a situation where they are expecting their partner to make them happy or expect their partner to change?
Absolutely. Yeah, so much. And I also work with people who have changed themselves so much to keep their partner happy that they've now lost who they are, and worked with people who don't even know what they like anymore, that they've spent so long focusing on what the other person wants that they actually don't know what they want anymore.
They lost themselves in the process.
Completely. Yeah. I mean, I've worked on, with couples where they're on a spectrum of, they've lost themselves a little bit and they can start gaining it back, or they literally don't know what they like. They don't know what they like doing. And they really are completely in the dark.
Mind you, I suppose any outcome could be considered successful, even if the relationship actually breaks down inevitably.
Yeah.
Having been through divorce, I kind of know what it feels like. That, I personally stuck with it for 14 years. And some years after the end of my marriage, I came to realize that we just wanted very different things from life in very different ways.
Yeah.
And we stuck with it because we were married and we loved
Yeah.
each other. And that's really quite interesting to, how do you balance your feelings with the reality? And you want to make it work and you can't.
And that's the real difficulty that a lot of couples face, is you're expecting the other person to change. Well, actually, they can't. So it's up to you to decide whether that's the right relationship for you. You know, we do tend to kind of fall into a relationship and keep it going with the hope that things are going to get better. And, you know, you hear people say, you know, when we're married, things will be much better. And you're just marrying someone who's going to 10 times what they do after you're married. So actually, it doesn't
or 10
pay.
times less.
Well, if they're doing less, they'll do it 10 times more.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
If they're doing, you know, horrible things, they'll do it 10 times more. Like marriage doesn't fix what you can see as an issue for you.
Why do people think that marriage will fix things?
I suppose just generally as a society, we've been given the impression that we need some external fixes to make us better. And we don't. So, you know, buying the nice cars, having the nice clothes and watches and, you know, doing all the things that, like going on nice holidays, we think that's going to bring us happiness. It brings us joy. But if our internal happiness isn't there, it really doesn't matter. So if you're running a business and, you know, your aim is to make loads of money and to be, you know, financially sound, if that is to the detriment of your relationship, well, why are you doing it?
Yeah, that comes the point. Like, are you doing it for yourself?
Yeah.
Or are you just fooling somebody? Or you think you're fooling somebody, but at the end of the day, you're just fooling yourself, aren't you?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So to talk about some practical communication resets, if a relationship feels strained but not beyond repair, what are the first boundaries or communication resets can you, as a relationship counselor, introduce to stabilize the connection before the resentment hardens between the two people?
The first thing is to avoid making each other wrong.
Okay.
The second thing is to leave the past in the past.
Ooh, that must be so hard.
It is really hard, but we can't change it. So if you've decided to stay together, say after infidelity, you have to make the choice. Like, am I going to let this go? Or am I going to carry it on for years and years and torture myself? Because that's kind of what happens.
So good at like bringing up the past and throwing it in the other's face.
Yeah, and because it can't be changed, what is your point? Why are you doing it? The other thing that I suggest is that everything comes from an I place. So I call it I phraseology, where whatever you raise with the other person, it's always, I feel X about X. So I feel really unhappy when you go out with your friends and come home drunk.
And is that good or bad?
That's a good way to do it because it's neutral. Whereas if you say, you're always going out getting drunk and, you know, you don't care about me. You see how the opposite to that is I feel really unloved. Yeah, I feel really unloved when you disrespect me by coming home drunk all the time.
Okay.
And the next thing is to avoid words like never, always. Because we'll say, oh, you never do the dishes, or you never earn enough money, or, you know, you're always late. It's an accusation. And the first thing that's going to happen after an accusation is, I'm going to defend myself here.
Yes, of course. And then
as soon as
you
you
are
get
off
into
on the wrong foot.
Defense, yeah, you're in conflict.
Why do people get into such a defensive kind of mindset or being?
Many reasons, many. Most of it's from childhood, right? We all have this inner child that, you know, is damaged in some way by our childhood. And that can be reflected actually even at work, in your business. So it's not just in your relationship. I don't know if you've ever been in the situation where you're working with somebody who they're always angry because they've made a judgment about your behavior, how it reflects on them. And, you know, they have this inner feeling of not being good enough, not being worthy. And so, of course, the minute somebody triggers them, they're angry and they go straight back to the feeling that they had as a child, even if the action isn't the same.
If you were listening to this thinking this is exactly where I get stuck, that is not accidental. You have the business strategies, but leaking energy and focus through weak personal health routines. This is the work I do privately with business owners who are ready to build their routines so their business can run without it costing them their health. It's amazing how much we carry from our childhood and we don't even realize. And it's really quite interesting that when you get into business especially, because I never had these experiences when I was in corporate employment, but when you get into business and you start to do a lot of self-development, and you are discovering all these things, then you realize that these are things that we should be taught at school, or maybe get some support when we're children, and we
Absolutely.
don't. It's just society sets so many rules for us, and we carry those age-old rules with us.
Yeah.
And then through the school system and through employment and corporate environments, it's all the same. And then you step out into business and it's just such a different world.
Yeah.
And I've been wondering, why is it so different? I don't understand, but it's so much better, so much more understanding.
Yeah. I think it comes back to respect and responsibility, and taking accountability. Who wants to admit that they've done something that hasn't worked? None of us, right? It's really horrible feeling to know that something that you did has created a problem.
I sort of disagree. I don't know, or maybe just a different personality, but
Yeah.
I've always been the kind of person that if I did something wrong, I'll be the first one to put my hand up. I'm sorry, I've done
And
this.
I'm the same.
And I know
but I don't think
it's not the
everybody
norm.
is. Yeah.
But nonetheless, I personally have to disagree on that, because I know that there are other people like me who actually
For sure. But none of us like to be attacked. None of us like to be made to feel like we've done something wrong. So if we are in that situation, then we will defend ourselves.
That's true.
Even if we do it kindly and calmly, like I teach my clients how to address a conflict in a kind, calm way so that they're still showing love and can show how to repair rather than get into conflict all the time.
Do people feel that that's kind of forced?
At first, it feels forced, of course. Anything that we do that puts us outside of our comfort zone feels forced. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. Can't remember the guy who did it, but he said if you look in the mirror and tell yourself every day, look in the mirror and look at yourself in the eyes and say, I love you 10 times, just your mindset will change. And it is such a good practice. And I get loads of people to do it. I do it myself and I still do it myself. Not every day now, because when you get to that point where you're okay with yourself, you don't need to do it. But if you have a bit of a down day, which we all do on varying degrees, right? Some of us get to the point where we literally can't do anything. And some of us, it's just like, really don't feel like doing this today, but I'll do it anyway. But you just might not need a little bit of a reset and to look in the mirror and say, I love you.
Absolutely.
It's really, really so good for your mental health.
It's
and
so
good
powerful.
Valuing yourself.
It's something I learned from a previous guest, Callan. His episode was out just before Christmas, and he was talking about this exact thing. Just he teaches it to his clients, standing in front of the mirror. I mean, he says go for 3 minutes, which is an incredible long time.
Yeah.
And I started doing it, and it is incredible. And I now incorporated it into my teachings as well, because it is so incredibly empowering.
Yeah, it's a really valuable tool.
It's a foundation to your emotional health, I now sort of believe, and practice it as well.
Yeah.
Because it all comes from within. And it kind of, goes back to what I mentioned earlier, like, the closure of my first marriage was like, realizing that I always wanted him to change.
Yeah.
And it was completely and utterly wrong of me. But it took me a few years after we parted to fully realize the amount of pressure that expectance was putting on him.
Yeah.
And it probably all stemmed from not understanding how to love myself in the first instance and expecting him to make me happy instead of me making myself happy.
Well, as Whitney Houston says, learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all, right? So it's really important to find a way to love yourself as much as you can.
Absolutely. So if, for the entrepreneurs, business owners, solopreneurs listening, or even, like, as we mentioned, people in management who do need to deal with people and people management in their work as well, they might be feeling some friction at home, but sadly they avoid the conversation because they might be hiding behind things that may feel easier. So is there a practical action they can take on this week to improve their relational health without triggering yet another argument, either with their partner or at work?
Well, I'd say, and this is going to sound very un-PC, I suppose, in some ways, for some people, and I'm sorry for those people hearing this who
my opinion on it is if the cup fits.
But if you greet your husband or your partner at the door every time they come in this week, you will see a difference in their energy. And equally, and this is talking to women, equally then for the men, if you say to your partner every single day, what can I do today to make your day better? For this whole week, I think they'll see a change in their partner too.
Why was it PC or not PC?
Because lots of people are a bit offended by the male female role in relationships. And it's really difficult to get people to understand it's not about not being a female or a strong woman by greeting your husband at the door or partner at the door. It's about being vulnerable and in your feminine energy.
Yeah.
And equally for men to say, what can I do today to make your day better?
But it could go either way. So whoever is doing the most at home, the other partner to actually offer the question, what can I help with?
Yeah, I mean,
potentially could be either way.
that should be how relationships work anyway. There should be, the opportunity for you to step in and help out at a time when they're really struggling.
Yeah.
So sometimes you might carry 60% of the weight and they're carrying only 40. And then later on in a few months' time, it might be the other way around. That's kind of a normal process in relationships. But this is a specific dynamic thing for women to greet their husbands at the door when they come in, or their partner, because not everybody's married, right? And equally for the men to say, what can I do to make your day better? Because
okay, so this is a very, very specific task you give to people. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But in terms of, carrying
Without
weight together.
trying to sound sexist, yeah.
Yeah. So if you ask about what they can do for 1 week, try that. And if you don't see a difference, I'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Or your relationship is doomed.
Yeah. Well, then that's the result. And this is what I said earlier, that sometimes we just need to accept that it's not repairable.
Yeah.
And then that is actually so incredibly freeing when you come to realize that nobody wants to end their marriage, really.
No.
You don't go into a marriage with the aim to divorce a few years later or even 2 decades or more later.
Yeah.
But if you do come to that point where you can't repair it, then might as well, because then you can actually balance your life so much better.
Yeah.
And it gives you a chance to find yourself.
Yeah. Sometimes the coaching process does that for you, and that means I've done my job well, that you've had the realizations that you need. One of the things I just want to quickly touch back on actually is when you're asking, what can I do to make your day better? You can use that on your staff too, your employees or your business partners or whatever, because sometimes the load of running a business is really tough. And if there's not many of you running the business, then you bear a lot of weight, getting everything done, doing the job, doing the social media, doing all the, the contact with clients and so on. That's a really, really big pressure. And, working relationship, you can also apply that 60-40 rule, where sometimes you might have to carry more than your business partner say, and sometimes they might have to carry more. But it's about that communication.
Yeah. I love Jim Rohn. I've listened to many of his books and lectures, and he certainly teaches to CEOs and managers to go and walk the shop floor and speak to staff and try and remember their names. And indeed, as you suggest, ask what I can do to make this work life better and easier for you.
Yeah.
And when people feel seen and appreciated, then their
more.
performance changes tremendously.
Yeah.
And I think that is exactly what happens in the home then, based on your suggestions, that the other person gets seen.
Yep. Seen
and
feels valued.
Appreciated and valued.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that all just sort of comes round that when you feel better at home in your own relationships, then you carry that positive feeling back to work, whether it's employment or your own business. Yeah. And then your own performance becomes better, doesn't it?
I mean, I think the thing is it's always good to remember what it was like at the bottom. We weren't always a CEO, right? We started out at the bottom. There's very few people who are lucky enough to step straight into a CEO position, right? So it's always good to remember what it's like at the bottom. And I think Richard Branson is one of the key people that I really like, his mentality about, valuing his staff. Because if they feel valued, they'll do more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is his company ethos, isn't it?
And I think it's a really good one. And he's a successful businessman. So,
for a reason. Unfortunately, you do actually see couples rebuild their connections every day as well. But is love actually fragile? Or is it simply unskilled communication that makes it look that way?
I personally think it is unskilled communication. Not being able to break the loop. It might be the John Gottman actually that says it's the loop of doom. So you have a problem, you handle it, and it gets put into a loop of doom. So you don't handle it well. So you come back round to maybe talking about the past or another issue that's perhaps not related to this one that you've brought up, but you just kind of bring in the ammunition. So it is good to be able to communicate well and say, we're not handling this as well as we could. Shall we start again? which can
At
be
what
used in a
stage?
work situation too.
Yeah. At what stage could we learn these communication skills?
Well, I think
Where does it not happen?
It's really difficult, isn't it? Because the education system is set up in an antiquated way. Now we need to learn to take responsibility for ourselves, and we're not being taught that in school. It's not happening. And I think that then comes into relationships. If you're not handling your responsibility for things as you grow up, how do you learn to do that in a relationship?
Yeah.
Being vulnerable is really, really difficult. And some people find it harder than others. You've already said yourself that, you're okay. Yep, I got that wrong. I'm really sorry. And I would do the same.
But 100 and 1,000 others wouldn't.
Exactly. And no one likes to feel attacked. And it only takes, the minuscule amount of that same emotional feeling to happen in our brains that takes us back to childhood. And we may not even remember the incident, but if it takes us back to that same feeling, then of course we're going to respond, we're going to react, it's going to trigger us. And I know lots of people don't like the trigger word either, but I use it a lot. And I use it a lot because it is really important that we acknowledge that we have triggers. Because when we acknowledge them, we can accept them.
Absolutely.
If we can accept we have a trigger, then we can start adjusting how we behave in response to that trigger. And it's really, really difficult. But usually with my couples, I get them to, first of all, just say, I feel triggered right now. I don't actually know why, but let's talk about it in half an hour or an hour or 10 minutes, however long you feel you need. You can apply that to work as well. If something happens in your business, it might be a client relationship, that's not quite right. You can take some time out and say, look, I can see that things aren't quite right. We've not got it right, or, something's not working well for us here. Let's agree to have a conversation about this tomorrow morning. I'll call you at 10. And the same if you do it at home in your relationship. We'll talk about it again in an hour. Yeah. Be specific about that.
Okay.
If you're going to come back in an hour, come back in an hour. If you're going to have a meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning to discuss this with the client, be there at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Responsible and reliable.
Yeah.
But what it made me think was, don't let the chimp brain respond.
Yes, which is why it's good to have that break.
Allow the chimp to calm down and then the human to come back out.
A technique that I teach people for that is, if somebody says something that riles you, triggers you, gets you, the most important thing to do is just take a deep breath and hold it for as long as you can before you respond, because then that gets the brain and the gut reconnected and you are responding then from kindness and love rather than, as you say, from the gym.
I thought there's a little more to that you take in a breath and then you blow it out for twice as long as you took the breath in.
Yeah, I mean, look, I start with some simple things. Yeah. It's always good to start, the ethos of even what you do, breath, right, is let's do some micro things first and get you used to at least saying, I feel triggered. And then the next step on from that is to understand the emotion. What is the emotion that's come with that? And how can you then respond differently? Because the emotion is normally driven by something you've told yourself.
Yeah, it's the belief, isn't it? And the stress that we attach to the belief.
I'm not loved, I'm not valued, I'm not worthy, I'm not good, I get things wrong, I'm never right. All of those things that we tell ourselves in that moment, instantly, without really thinking about it.
This really is very links back to mental health. The episode I had with a gentleman called Sam Bones that came out at the end of February, we talked about stress and stressors, and he explained how it's the belief that we are attached to certain things that are the actual stressors.
Yep.
And that is exactly what you find in relationships.
Yeah, and all relationships, None of us like, for example, a complaint. So I always say to, people who are running businesses, complaints are really good. They're important. Lessons. If it's a complaint on Google, for example, that is brilliant, because your response to that complaint says more about you than the complaint.
Oh, it's even more important to not respond instantly, because then the chimp brain wakes up.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell them exactly what, and that's, that's not going to help.
I think I responded to an Airbnb review once out of that position, out of that anger. And then, of course, you can't take it off once it's there. No. Fortunately, it was absolutely years ago, so it's not visible anymore. Yeah. But never, ever did it again, because when I read it back the next day and the next week, it was haunting me for a while. Because I really shouldn't have flipped out back at them, even if I was kind of in the right. But still, at the end of the day, I'm providing a service and I shouldn't have responded from that
Positive feedback
angry
is
point
always
of
good, right?
view. Yeah.
Yeah. It is about just taking that deep breath and really responding, from a conscious level rather than, as you say, from your chimp brain.
So if you want to round up how to manage our emotions and our relationships to maintain our emotional health, I think what comes across is take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath. Yep.
And take it from there.
It's the first step of meditation, right? Breathing.
Absolutely.
You can do a meditation for 30 seconds of just breathing in and out. And that is a meditation.
That's, again,
Just
linking
you.
spiritual health with mental health, with emotional health.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a very good keyword. Ground ourselves with that.
Yeah, grounding is good.
And thank you very much for your insights into relationships, both private and business, and how our relationships with people in general, not just at home, affect how we run our business. And thank you for your bits of advice of how to make things better.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
If this episode has shown you where weak health routines are costing you revenue, your next step is simple. Ask yourself this question: is your business draining your energy faster than it grows? If the answer might be yes, I invite you to book a conversation via the link in the show notes. If this conversation made you think, please subscribe, leave a comment, and listen again. If you would like more information on the topic or my guest, all information is in the show notes. Remember, your business will only ever be as healthy as you. Together, let's build routines to bank results.